Thank you for attending this webinar hosted by Alithya. I'll be one of your co-presenters today. My name is Mike Killeen. I'm the Senior Vice President of Technology and Strategy here at Alithya. I've been in this space that we call Oracle Cloud Consulting, Hyperion, Arbor, EPM, and S-Base for over 27 years. And I've seen a tremendous change in the technology and the trends of how that technology has been applied in the industry over that period of time. My background is engineering, but I also have an MBA, so I'd like to bring a unique combination of both technology and business approach to all of our implementations. You can reach me at mike.killeen@alithya.com, and you'll see my LinkedIn profile as before. I'm now going to turn it over to my co-presenter to introduce himself, David Pabst.
Thank you, Mike. My name is David Pabst. I'm a Senior Director and Solutions Architect here at Alithya. I've been leading EPM solution design really with a passion for designing, budgeting, and forecasting solutions for the past 13 years at Alithya. I actually started out as a client of Alithya, building financial systems out in the retail industry. Fun fact about me, I actually wrote a book about best practices around budgeting and forecasting called The 9 Principles of Agile Planning. And you can certainly contact me at david.pabst@alithya.com.
A little bit about Alithya. Alithya is a publicly traded company headquartered out of Montreal, Canada. We have about 4,000 employees, and we've been in existence for over 25 years. Within Alithya, we have a dedicated Oracle practice that focuses on delivering Oracle Cloud applications within ERP and supply chain, HCM, and enterprise performance management. In addition, we provide managed services and advisory services. Additionally, Alithya runs our business on Oracle Cloud applications, which has been an engine for growth. And several of the principles that we'll be describing here today around connected planning, we have been implementing ourselves internally as well. The final thing I'll point out is that from an enterprise performance management and from a cloud application standpoint, we have one of the largest staples of Oracle ACEs within the country, currently sitting at 8. And we're very proud of our long historical relationship with Oracle Product Management, putting us at the forefront of innovation across our close to 1,000 ERP and EPM cloud projects. The learning objectives and agenda for this webinar series really involves 4 discrete components. The first is to both define what we mean by connected planning and how one can facilitate connected planning opportunities beyond your traditional finance use cases. After that introduction, we'll have 3 separate breakout sessions focusing on practical applications of connected planning. The first for capital, the second for marketing, and then third for IT or information technology. So what first is connected planning? Connected planning is a process that links your stakeholders together so they can forecast in an integrated fashion. The key component of this is that changes in one area are reflected as an impact into another. Targets can propagate and interface both top to bottom. Every organization today does connected planning, whether they realize it or not, typically with a mixture of Excel, email, meetings, phone calls. And so there's a tremendous opportunity to streamline those interconnection processes between people during the planning process, which will improve efficiency, collaboration, and speed. If I think about a typical organizational structure, connected planning is really designed to integrate the top of the house strategy and accountability reporting that are defined by the C-suite and typically enabled by corporate FP&A teams with the line of business plans that we see supported by analysts and what we consider business area finance. At the top of the house, I might see the chief operating officer. I might see, leaders for various functions, all engaging with the CEO and the CFO. But in terms of business area finance teams, I might be looking at corporate functions, specifically around HR, IT, and marketing, sales and operations, HR, IT, and marketing management. One of the most challenging aspects of connected planning, besides the need to link together disparate people and data elements, is the different views that are required. And as very often one will find that the views necessary to support the line of business or operational perspective are different than those from the consolidated view. And so we'll kind of into some of the benefits and pros and cons of that as we move forward. If we think about traditional planning flywheel, when we talk to our customers, part of what we're trying to understand is how deep they want to go within a connected planning process. Most customers, if they start at the top of the house, will end up in the C-suite and the top quadrant, focusing on long range planning, which is what they aspire to do, as well as budgets, which is what they commit to do, and then ultimately financial forecast, which corresponds with what they think that they want to do. But supporting that needs to be more detailed, more timely, more frequently updated operational plans and mid-level line of business plans, whether or not I'm looking at significant spend opportunities in information technology, which can be both run and transform, whether I'm looking at sales planning in terms of quota and territory and what I think I'm going to commit, how I'm investing my marketing dollars in terms of campaign management, where I'm investing my spend from a labor perspective, and then finally, in terms of supply chain and operations. Typically, what we see is depending on the industry, where a customer prioritizes those line of business plans will be different. For example, in service related industries, there's more of an emphasis on technology and HR. In product related industries, there's typically a heavy focus on supply chain and operations.
And to bring the planning flywheel of connecting all the different parts of the organization together, both from planning and forecasting process, but also connecting the operational systems that support each of those different areas, you need a connected planning platform. And there are several in the market. Alithya has chosen to implement Oracle's Cloud Enterprise Performance Management. Sometimes we call it EPM, and it is a planning technology to provide a modern cloud-based planning process. There's several different analysts and research firms in the industry, and regardless of which one you look at, here is one that's out there from IDC, and you'll see Oracle continues to be the leader in the top right quadrant, is the leader to deploy connected planning within your organization. A little bit about Oracle Cloud Enterprise Performance Management Connected Planning. It's really to connect all planning in your organization. So everything from strategic modeling and long-range planning for the C-suite to model things like M&A, your traditional financial and operational planning to build out a budget or a forecast for next year. And then what we're really talking about today is taking that financial planning process and driving it down to the other parts of the organization, like marketing, like IT, like sales. And those areas have planning processes, like Mike said, they're doing it in Excel today. And what this allows you to do is connect the C-level or the FP&A view down into the planning processes that those other parts of the business. Oracle Cloud EPM supports all manner of planning, whether that's rolling, forecast, continuous planning, top-down planning, zero-based budgeting, allocations, and really we're being asked all the time today around how can I employ data science, generative AI, automated anomaly detection, automated predictions, and Oracle Cloud EPM allows us to bring those technologies to both the FP&A style of planning as well as the line of business planning, which we're going to drill in today. So what makes connected planning special? The big difference between your traditional budgeting and forecasting processes is normally we'll have hundreds of non-finance stakeholders that might use a system like this. When you have non-finance users, it has to be easy. It has to have the usability of an iPad application. If someone's going to come into this application and ask for money to fund a marketing project or fund an IT project or fund the construction of a new building through the capital request process, it needs to be very easy for people to adopt. And these planning processes, they have to be in the language of the area that we're trying to help, right? Like a finance view that's P&Ls and balance sheets and accounts and all the complexity of accounting. You know, that's not what these types of applications. These applications need to speak in the terms of IT services, capital construction projects, marketing campaigns. And if you can bring all of these things together where it's easy to use, it's on demand through the cloud, And to really add value is that what's in it for me. So that, just because FP&A asks a functional area to adopt online planning process, it needs to make life better for those different functions that we're actually deploying this technology to. So often we'll see organizations that adopt these kinds of tools, a reduction in spreadsheets, faster turnaround, better access to data, greater control over spend, and more efficiency. So in our webinar series that we're covering today, we're actually going to drill into 3 examples. So 3 different perspectives of planning within the business. The first one that we're going to take you through in this webinar series, we call it capital portfolio planning. Often the sponsor is the CFO in the organization. So this is that long cycle process in capital intensive organizations where we go from ideation, hey, what are the big capital investments we're going to make over the next couple of years, turning those into capital requests, and automating really the capital request process within an online web-based tool. Often we'll see hundreds to thousands of users that might use a solution like this. Then we're going to take a look at what we'll call marketing lifecycle planning, which is often the sponsor is the chief marketing or chief revenue officer in an organization. Again, similarly to the capital process, going from the idea of what are the different areas we can deploy marketing dollars within the organization. Some of our clients that are marketing centric might have $500 million to $1 billion of marketing per year that they have to maintain governance on and make sure they pay their vendors and approve investments and understand the ROI of the different investments they're making. So again, these are marketing people that are accessing a planning tool. It needs to be in their language. It needs to be really accessible for them to get value out of it. And finally, our last connected planning example we're going to walk through, we call it IT financial management. The sponsor of this is often the CIO of an organization. It's really pivoting from a financial view of how much does IT cost to getting an understanding of how IT benefits the organization and what are the investments we're going to have to make in a online cloud-based planning and forecasting tool. And this allows us to link planning, execution, and purchasing all together in a seamless environment for the IT organization. If you'd like to learn more, visit us at infosolutions@alithya.com. In the next segment of Alithya's Connected Planning Beyond Finance webinar, we're going to take a look at one of the 3 practical applications of connected planning. Next, we're going to talk about capital portfolio planning, which is for a capital-intensive organization, often the sponsor in an organization who's authorizing and controlling capital investments in the organization is the CFO. Alithya actually has created a pre-built accelerator that's available in Oracle's cloud marketplace to help automate capital request forms in a cloud-based tool. So have you ever wondered how organizations decide what projects to take on, or how do they decide where to spend their next dollar to grow their businesses? And then how do they go about prioritizing all the projects and opportunities that they might have? Well, the truth is, in most organizations, it starts out as a request form. We see a lot of different organizations where if you want to purchase a piece of an equipment, a forklift, a truck, a fire truck, or fund a construction project or an IT project, it all starts with filling out a capital request form. And if you think about how sort of antiquated that is, you'll fill out a capital request form in Word or Excel. You'll email that to someone in FP&A who has to collate all the different request forms that come in. There could be hundreds of them. Consolidate those into briefing packages and bring those up to the different capital committees, up to the board of directors, and solicit approval for, hey, these are the capital projects we're going to fund next year. Well, Oracle Cloud EPM and Alithya's Capital Portfolio Planning Accelerator really allows us to take these request forms and say no to request forms and bring them up to the Oracle Cloud EPM into a very easy to use iPad app-like application where the organization can go and ask for capital and support the entire capital request process. Alithia's capital lifecycle takes us from ideation. So that's the process where people can say, hey, over the next 2 or 3 years, I know I have these investments I need to make. I have some things I'd like to do. And then maybe like 2, 3, 4, 5 years out, I know that we have some strategic things we need to do, equipment refreshes, renovations, and so on. You can take all managers in the organization can actually come in and go to their sandbox and actually create their investment roadmap out the next couple of years. They can take items from their own personal sandboxes, and when ready, they can turn them into capital requests, submit capital requests into an automated workflow. Those will go through the organization. People get emailed, alerted. We can take items through the different capital committees to set the capital budget. And then throughout the year, we can actually draw down the capital budgets and authorize capital projects to commence. And then projects will run through their life cycle and then ultimately be placed into service and be able to be depreciated. So Lithia's capital portfolio planning really supports 3 use cases: bottoms up capital request submission through an online portal, full justification ROI, what are the benefits, what are the costs, that can be routed through a flexible approval workflow. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, continuous project authorization. So when the organization is ready to actually say, yep, I want my money to go purchase that piece of equipment, a manager in the organization can come in, draw down their budget, submit a project authorization. If it gets approved, communicates that to your purchasing tool, and then we're off to the races. And then the organization as a whole could bring all of this information together and monitor the financial health of all the capital projects that are going on within the organization within one online portal. If you'd like to learn more about Alithia's capital portfolio planning, we have a YouTube series of 5 1-minute videos that can walk you through all the different components of the capital programming process. And there's a QR code there that you can scan.
Welcome back to this next installment in our series of Connected Planning hosted by Alithia. I'm Mike Killeen, and I'll be taking you through the second of our 3 practical application use cases for connected planning, this one specifically focused on marketing. Marketing planning is a line of business use case that's typically sponsored by the chief operating officer or the chief marketing officer. Concepts associated with marketing planning, including marketing campaign lifecycle management from ideation to spend, typically breaking that marketing spend down into both restricted or fund-based versus business as usual, which is unrestricted. And both of these processes need to have a tight integration, not only with the financial process for planning, but also the financial close. Typically, the accruals that are booked into the corporate accounting system are based on latest estimates to complete. You also have integration with financial planning analysis in a bidirectional capacity. Step 1 being the marketing funds available at the macro level, whether it be target setting, followed up by the latest forecast from a bottom-up perspective. And then finally, for the operational marketing planning use cases, we have operational integration with procurement to pay solutions at the end of the day. Key takeaway with the marketing planning use case is it is a beyond finance use case that not only moves past corporate finance and even business area finance, but should be easy to use for marketing operation team members who are typically engaged with managing the marketing campaign life cycles. The last thing I'll say back on fund-based versus non-fund-based is that we typically see that in industries where there's some form of franchise-based model, where in the service fees that are coming in, a portion of those service fees need to be allocated to joint marketing initiatives. Macro level in terms of the marketing planning process, if I look at the rows in terms of the teams, I start off with finance, which is really business area finance. I can then get into, corporate finance, excuse me. The next level down, which is regional or local finance, is what I would consider a business area finance team. And those top 2 levels are typically the levels that we'll see at best within traditional FP&A or financial planning processes. The next two level downs are regional marketing and the marketing team. These are the levels that we think of as marketing operations, with regional marketing typically being associated with marketing leadership, and the marketing team basically being the ops resources focusing on the initiatives themselves. So a traditional process starts with corporate finance establishing to the marketing teams what their targets are for the budgeting cycle. Those business area finance teams communicate to the operational teams what their pool of money available for each group of initiatives is. The marketing teams will then be able to focus on investment planning and how they carve out that pool of money. So, for example, if the Northeast region for consumer products has been allocated a pool of money for marketing spend, $5 million for the upcoming year, the marketing team will decide how to allocate that $5 million to the various initiatives, whether it be advertising, consumer promotions, mass media, special events, and what have you. As those initiatives are created from a budgeting standpoint, they are reviewed and approved by marketing leadership. They're reviewed and approved from a roll-up perspective by the business area finance team. And then ultimately, that initial financial target and budget is linked both top down and bottoms up between the financial plan and the marketing plan. Once those initiatives are created, the operational aspect of marketing is executed, whereas those initiatives become proper statements of work and purchase orders, the actuals can be incorporated into the system. And in terms of day to day, the actual accruals and payments can be compared against the budget and the variance reporting communicated accordingly. And then finally, as each monthly process goes on from an operational standpoint, snapshots of the latest estimate to completions, the latest spend can be communicated and incorporated into a published monthly or quarterly forecasting cycle as defined. So effectively, you have two processes going on. You have the continuous operational process at the regional marketing and marketing team level that's connected to the periodic annual, quarterly, or monthly financial plan or forecast in a bidirectional top-down and bottoms-up capacity. Alithya has proven that Oracle EPM Cloud is an excellent solution for supporting this operational planning use case. The question really becomes why? If you're a customer moving from Hyperion to EPM Cloud, or if you're new to EPM Cloud itself, but are coming from a financial planning and forecasting system, you'll understand that traditionally within financial planning processes, it's a language of numbers. Hyperion customers typically were very Excel oriented, very numbers oriented, very chart of account structure, the sort of things that appeal towards financial analysts. But to move into beyond finance use cases such as marketing, we have to make sure that the user interface and the capabilities appeal to a broader class of users. In addition to that, we need to ensure that the planning solution can encapsulate additional content besides numbers. So if we specifically look at Oracle EPM Cloud, some of the key capabilities include non-financial measures for both input and reporting, being able to capture start and stop dates for things such as initiative, being able to capture text such as initiative descriptions, vendor descriptions, purposes, and then being able to drive drop-downs and smart lists such as marketing categories, that can group into other reporting needs are critical. The other aspect of it is particularly in beyond finance use cases, teams become much more visual in what they do. So being able to have enhanced reporting, what we consider inline dashboarding as part of the process becomes important. And finally, the last two components that become critical are the ability to link and manage the master data. As one envisions the marketing cycle that starts off with a pool of money, and a temporary initiative is created as a carve-off. And as that operations resource solicits statement of work approvals, ultimately the result is a purchase order. So there has to be some mechanism to connect the pre-approved budget and planned initiatives with the post-approved purchase orders, which allows you to link together the actuals as they come through the system, the accruals that are needed, and ultimately the plan and forecast. And then finally, if I look at Oracle EPM Cloud, one of the other significant use cases that we see beyond finance is a need to incorporate other systems. EPM Cloud provides a Groovy engine for extensibility that can be used to optimize workflows and validations. So if you want to do any sort of custom workflow for approval based on a variety of criteria, you can do so. Because these data sets for beyond finance tend to be much bigger and broader than financial, it also provides the ability to optimize calculations well past what people would consider in the traditional finance space. And then finally, the ability to link to other systems. In the marketing planning use case, the two significant ones that we would typically tie into would be procurement. Again, being able to turn as much of this as possible into PO-based spend creates a strong link and control. And then the other potentially is in terms of CRM, depending on the nature of the marketing initiative, if it is something that is customer specific and not just product specific, that becomes a key tie-in factor as well. So, quick marketing case study. Alithya was proud to partner with a global financial services firm on deploying Oracle Cloud EPM to 600 marketing and finance users in multiple countries and multiple languages that was used to manage a list of marketing campaigns, tie POs, and ask for funding. This replaced fragmented Excel-based solutions. This solution was easy to use and deploy to global teams. It integrated both operational and financial reporting, and it created a link between controllership in terms of the accrual process, FP&A in terms of the planning process, and marketing operations in terms of the management and the details around the spend. This particular customer also had the instance of needing to require fund-based marketing spend that was restricted. And in Europe, this required substantial regulatory reporting. So from a controllership standpoint, this also helped to satisfy some of the other reporting needs around regulatory spend. And then finally, for this particular customer, this was not only marketing, but finance's first experience with EPM Cloud, really making it their first SaaS application and paving the way from a migration from historically custom and internal on-premise solutions such as Hyperion. Welcome to the final installment in a series hosted by Alithya on connected planning. In prior segments, we learned the definition of connected planning and how to facilitate connected planning use cases beyond traditional finance. We also heard two of our three practical applications for connected planning, one focused on capital portfolio management, the other focused on marketing planning. If you get the opportunity to, I'd suggest you go back and listen to the other recordings in our series of webinars. In our final use case, we are going to focus on connected planning for information technology, which in many organizations is the second largest contributor to spend outside of labor. Traditionally, within IT organizations, there's a class of IT management called IT financial management that is sponsored by the Chief Information Officer. IT financial management is a line of business, is a business process focused on planning, budgeting, and forecasting for IT, reporting, and more often than not, as IT has become shared service centers, costing and chargebacks. It's typically owned by the IT finance team with dual reporting structures to satisfy both internal IT operational reporting needs vis-a-vis the CIO, in addition to needing to feed into enterprise reporting hosted by corporate FP&A. The premise behind IT financial management, some of the key pillars include topics such as being able to run IT like a standalone business and being able to ensure that IT spend can be tracked, measured, and compared for both day-to-day BAU operations that we consider run the business, as well as innovation and investment to help grow and transform the business. Other capabilities include being able to provide and show the value of IT to internal business partners and customers, sometimes called a bill of IT. And then finally, to ensure that planning, execution, and purchasing can come together into a holistic process to ensure that commitments are adhered to and the controls are in place. As alluded to previously, one of the key aspects that we're seeing with many of our customers with respect to IT financial management is that CIOs should run their organization like a standalone business. Some of the goals include ensuring that there's greater transparency to IT service charges so that internal customers can see the value of IT, making sure that IT projects are always aligned with strategic business priorities, ensuring that IT spend analysis can help get that breakdown between run and grow and transform, and to build a culture that enhances IT credibility within the business. The three primary components that comprise IT financial management include IT planning and analysis, which includes budgeting and forecasting, IT chargebacks and a bill of IT, and then the master data and metadata management and automation that support it. From an Alithya standpoint, we view IT financial management as a critical component of a true connected planning process. Some of the key stakeholders in IT financial management include the CIO, who needs to explain the business investments in IT and the value delivered, the VP of applications, who needs to understand the application total cost of ownership to help perform application rationalization and cost optimization, and ultimately get to a cost per supported user. And the VP of Infrastructure of Operations, who needs to explain how infrastructure is not only used by internally custom-built applications and processes, but also to support third-party business processes at the end of the day. Providing the link to these three key leaders in IT and the enterprise is the IT finance manager, who not only needs to satisfy the internal reporting needs of IT leadership, but also provide the input capabilities and transparency to the rest of the business and corporate finance of IT spend and its value, including IT cost transparency and ultimately getting to more of a consumption-based model for analysis. If I create a spotlight on one of the first pillars of IT financial management, specifically IT planning and forecasting, for most of our customers, this typically takes forth in four discrete phases. The first is what we consider IT target setting. This is typically established by corporate finance in conjunction with the business, where based on targeted metrics, both targets for IT run and IT investment can be defined in accordance with strategic priorities. The goals are to make sure that BAU targets are aligned with revenue and make sense, and that initiatives can be linked to strategic planning. Alithya has invested in additional connected planning solutions, such as capital portfolio planning, which you can actually see elsewhere in the series, that talks a little bit more about the capital request process to create those initial pools of money before getting into the detailed planning and forecasting. The second component for us is what we consider the IT resource plan and forecast. This is really focusing on both the labor, which would include employees and contractors, and non-labor, which would include equipment and software, whether it be virtual or not, within the framework of their planning tool. These solutions typically integrate with the human capital management and fixed asset systems and provide visibility into what we consider the IT supply plan. The next component is what we consider the IT project plan and forecast. This is where what we can think of as the demand plan, specifically as the next level down for initiatives tied to strategic planning, can be executed. This includes budgeting and ROI for new programs and projects, forecasting for indirect and capital projects, and this typically integrates with PPM solutions. One of the key things that we ensure that our customers work to is having a uniform view of their master data. So the high-level resource categories defined in the demand view for financial planning and forecasting can be mapped to with a more detailed bottoms-up view for resource planning around labor and non-labor on the supply side. And then finally, the last component is the monitoring analysis, being able to create self-service reporting and ad hoc analysis. So this next level down IT resource and project view can group by and sum into the ultimate financial plans that are fed throughout the enterprise. The other pillar of IT financial management, once these IT supply and demand plans are created that create the spend perspective, is to establish the link into the beneficiary perspective. Again, for IT to run itself as a standalone business, they need to demonstrate their value to their internal business partners. And so supporting that is what we call the IT chargebacks and bill of IT. And that feeds into a solution within the Oracle EPM platform called IT costing and chargebacks. IT costing and chargebacks typically includes three discrete views. The first is the modeling of financials and projects, which typically includes incorporating data from multiple sources, such as the general ledger and the financial planning tool, typically a project subledger. And then depending on what's required, you can obviously also include time entry hours by project and vendor detail from an AP and GL. IT is typically the one area where exposing vendor information alongside initiatives becomes critical because of the economies of scale that can be generated with that spend. Separately from that process, you can then perform cost center allocations. Most IT organizations are structured into direct and indirect responsibility centers, where the indirect responsibility centers can include things such as architecture and governance, security, CIO, PMO. Additionally, given the nature of IT, there may be internal charges between various IT functions. For example, you may see that the VP of application infrastructure is providing both services to other areas of IT in addition to the business itself. And then finally, depending on the investments that are made, being able to support what we consider project allocations, including capitalization of labor to projects. The next step in this process is typically the costing of IT operations. This is being able to assign cost to the resource level. So we consider labor costing by class, skill, person, depending on the level of granularity required, asset costing by class, type of equipment, and then with those fully burdened costs in place, taking it to either an application or service view so that the fully burdened projects, employees, and resources can be incorporated into what the consumer ultimately sees. And then finally, the last component is really IT as a business service provider. This is for run-based activities, modeling out what we consider a service catalog. And in that service catalog, having the flexibility to even to pass true cost in, or to get into a model where you're doing more P times Q rates and calculations, in which case then the variances associated between the cost and the chargeback are encapsulated and allocated out in a separate process. And so when we talk about showbacks and chargebacks, this is the variability and flexibility that customers require to support both management reporting as well as what's needed for legal purposes, particularly in global organizations where markups and transfer pricing can become a part of it as well. So in the big picture, one of the important benefits of the Oracle EPM Cloud Platform is the flexibility and deployment options. Many of our customers like to take a crawl, walk, run approach, particularly as one thinks about moving from what we call the financial view to the operational view to the consumer view. We have greater levels of complexity, predominantly tied to the levels of grain and the levels of detail and the myriad of data sources that are involved. So as an example, a typical customer that we may start with might be doing something as basic as looking at accounts and entities, which we might think of as cost centers, and doing simple allocations to their consumers. A more refined customer might start trying to take advantage of project structures, whether it be for recurring spend, which is really not projects, but just a convenience, or true project spend to link to consumers. And so when we look at the premise of moving connected planning to the next phase beyond finance, it's really about moving somebody from the bronze and silver level down to gold, platinum, and diamond. Because it is at those levels that we start creating the additional views within the platform that we call operation that is targeted towards IT leadership itself. And so once that view is enabled, truly connected planning has been achieved because I can now create a holistic solution that models from top bottom to bottom top, that includes the financial view for the enterprise, the operational view for IT, and the consumer view for the business to see the value and the benefits received by IT. Couple samples of output, again, dashboards that are showing the composition of both IT services and applications for different types of applications and resources. But honestly, particularly enabled by the gold view, the view that most of our consumers are very interested in is what we call the bill of IT. In this particular example, we're looking at a charge that the UK sales consumer or entity has received from IT. And rather than seeing one large number for $235,000 US, they're seeing the breakdown of that number that includes the service driver, the quantity, the unit cost, and the charge at the end of the day. And so from a transparency perspective, the consumer has got better visibility into what are they getting for the lump charge they might have historically received in the prior state. On behalf of Alithya, we'd like to thank you for taking the time to join us through this webinar series. If you haven't done so, I'd encourage you to go back and look at some of the other sessions. And if you'd like to learn more, you can contact us at infosolutionsatLithya.com. Thanks very much and have a great day.